Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And we were just discussing the weather in Wisconsin, and we realized we should invite everyone to be part of it. And I'm going to get started. I get started right on time. I'm Billy Wimsatt, proud to be Executive Director of Movement Voter PAC for the purposes of this call. And we have a bunch of new people on the call who aren't exactly sure all what MVP is. So I'll just say we are a one-stop shop for donors, big and small, to support hundreds of amazing organizations to organize year-round to win elections, pass policy, transform communities and culture. And MVP, I'm going to tell you also we are not, and what we do not do, which is really important, we organize and advise donors, right? We support organizations through funding and capacity building, and we help build alliances and try to help the whole movement be greater than the sum of the parts. And we innovate and collaborate and increasingly lovingly agitate to build a better movement. And all the things on the right-hand side column, we do not do, but we do fund our partners to do those things. So that's a little more clarity on MVP, and you can learn more on the About page at movement.vote. So we are going to get right into it. Few quick notes. It's not too late to invite friends and family. This will be a very inspiring call. You can just go, there's a link right there. It's also on the front of the web page, top of the web page. It's going to be a great briefing. Yes, we will send you the recording and slides. Feel free to intro yourself in the chat and ask questions in Zoom's Q&A feature. We are, after this call, it's a 60-minute call, after which there will be a 30-minute optional office hours where we can take questions, talk about organizing and how people are organizing locally. And we're going to get started with an icebreaker. And this is a very unconventional icebreaker. We're going to give you a poll right now. It's a very spicy, extra spicy, substantive prompt icebreaker, and that should pop up on your screen. And I would just want to give you a little context. There are 3 questions, and each one has a 1 to 10 scale. And these are the same questions we asked our program team at our program retreat right after the election. We did it as a spectrum exercise where go to this side of the room if you want to vote 10, this side for a 1, and put yourself in between, wherever you belong. So the first spicy question, what is your prediction for 2026 and 2028? Are we in for a semi-normal election? Semi-normal by 2022, 2024 standards? Or are we dealing with full-on autocracy? On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is semi-normal and 10 is full autocracy, where do you think we are? What do you think we're headed for? So that's the seeing into the future question. Spicy question number 2. The Democratic Party, how much does it need to change? Small tweaks or blow it up and reinvent it from scratch? Do a 1 for small tweaks, do a 10 for blow it up and start from scratch. And there's no right answers here. We want to just do this quickly, whatever number comes to mind, so we can just get an impressionistic view of how people are feeling and thinking right now. Spicy question number 3. Same question about the Democratic Party, but for MVP and our partners and kind of like all our related allies and outside groups. How much do you think we need to make small tweaks? We're mostly doing things right versus we need to completely blow up our model and reinvent it from scratch. So, and this third question is especially important to us to get your feedback on it because you are all stakeholders in MVP, and many of you are very long-time donors, committed volunteers, and we want to know, what is your perception of how much our model and approach needs to evolve in this new era? And we will take that as an important data point as we plot our course. Okay, so I'm just looking at the results so far of the first question. It's pretty mixed from 3 to 10. How do I see the next one? Uh-oh, I don't know how to see the next one. Is there someone who can see the responses who can give a quick report out on how questions 2 and 3 are going?
Yeah, Billy, I think you can just scroll down, but yeah, there's definitely a skew toward reinventing the Democratic Party. And in terms of question three, how about the outside game MVP and our allies? Pretty smooth bell curve with most folks somewhere in the middle.
Okay. So please keep voting in this poll, and we will be eagerly analyzing the results as we go. But I think a top line here is we are in a lovingly agitational place with ourselves and with everyone we work with. We have to figure out what can we learn? How do we do this all better? We're doing a lot of stuff that works, and we can't rest on our laurels. We clearly have to ask really big questions and be ready to make really big changes and experiment. So just to zoom out, that's a good segue to right now. Rome is on fire. Why are we talking about Wisconsin? It's the last couple of weeks have been incredibly traumatizing. And before we get to the main course in the evening to Wisconsin, I want to start by just acknowledging the unprecedented crisis we're in right now at a national level. And I know this is completely unhelpful to say, but everything we're experiencing the last couple weeks, this is why we tried so hard to win the damn election in the first place. So we would not be in this situation. So it turns out our theory of change is really, really true. When we don't win elections, things get really bad. So lesson learned. And on this call, we're going to talk mostly about an upcoming election that we still have a chance to win. The very pivotal Wisconsin Supreme Court election, which is just over 5 weeks away on April 1st. So when we say it's really important, believe us, okay? But before we get into Wisconsin, I want to zoom out and share a couple quick thoughts about the national situation. And I just want to reflect the 3 biggest burning questions that we're getting right now in post-election. Question number 1, what the hell are we doing about this media situation? Question number 2, what did we learn in 2024 about field organizing and about MVP's model, and what are we doing differently? Question number 3, it's been huge in the past few weeks. What are we doing about this freaking crisis situation? And these are 3 great questions. They're the same questions we're obsessing with internally at MVP. And I'm just going to give short answers. Obviously, we could spend the whole time on any of these topics, but we're going to save them for future presentations. I'll just give you a top line. With media, we are intensively mapping the media space and planning to make a series of investments in media strategies in complement to our organizing strategies. With organizing, we're doing deep dive and having big, loving, agitational conversations with our partners who are also having lovingly agitational conversations with themselves to improve organizing in so many ways, and especially to go from superficial mobilizing to deeper organizing. And our groups do a spectrum, and lots to talk about there. And finally, with the immediate crises, we're helping to organize to hold Trump and Congress accountable with a wide range of funding efforts, which I'll talk about. And just to zoom out, because this is so hard, it's really important to keep in mind the bigger perspective. We have to remember the Trump era is going to come to an end one way or another on one timeline or another. There will be another chapter after this, and it's our job to stop as much of the bad stuff as we can and to envision the light at the end of the tunnel and give voters something to vote for, not just against. The good news, sliver of good news, Trump's approval has declined more than 5 points in the last month since the inauguration. And we expect it to keep going down as the pain of his overreach hits more people, and this will make it harder for him to get things done. Republicans will have to think twice about supporting everything he does. Courts will have more wind at their backs to stand up to him, et cetera. And all the protests and the public education and online work people have been doing have contributed to this decline. What we're doing is working. We need to keep at it, be encouraged. It is our job to lead and organize with victory in mind. And what is MVP doing? In the first 100 days, we are working with a framework we call Block, Build, Innovate, Win. And just a quick plug, if you're looking to learn more about our first 100 days plan or to donate, it's right there on the front page of movement.vote. And if you're donating, if you're moving less than $5,000 or making recurring donations, which we love, or you want to get involved, you can do that right on the front page. You can get a lawn sign and swag and bumper stickers. It's really easy to spread the word about this model. And if you want to move more than $5,000 and you already have an MVP donor advisor, call them up, schedule a meeting to learn more about all the different ways that we're doing this work and supporting the different aspects of what needs to happen right now. And if you are a newer donor who wants to invest more than 5K and you don't yet have a donor advisor, let us know at advisor@movement.vote, and we'll match you with an advisor based on your region and your interests. And so far, thank you all, we have raised a little over 1.1 million toward our $10 million goal. So good start. We have a long way to go. Thank you all so much for everyone who's contributed, and please keep spreading the word. Zooming out, we see the first 100 days as R&D for the next 4 years. First 100 days is the best time to move smart money. Do you want things done differently and better in 2026 and 2028? The more you want things to be done differently, the smarter it is to invest big in early 2025 efforts that are going to work toward doing things differently and experimenting. And just to give you a quick snapshot, we are simultaneously launching, where does the money go? It's a mix of longer term efforts like that need R&D, like this media work and this upgrading organizing, short and medium term efforts impacting Congress and the federal government, and immediate protection of communities and pushback on authoritarianism through rapid response funding. So I just want to give a few quick examples of this. I'll run through this. Types of things groups are doing. Court cases, one of MVP's partners, CASA, was a lead plaintiff on the birthright citizenship case. Several of our partners, including groups in Pennsylvania, have successfully convinced cities not to cooperate with ICE. Our partners are organizing smart, coordinated pushback, like this example from Michigan, all over the country. And we are targeting House districts, both for the midterms and to put pressure on vulnerable Republicans now. And shout out to groups like Indivisible and so many others who are organizing in almost every congressional district. So many more things people are doing. And finally, in just over 5 weeks, the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, which we're going to talk about right now, if we can win that, it will send a strong message that the message will slow Trump's momentum nationwide and put MAGA forces on the defensive. Wisconsin will be one of the first big symbols about whether the Trump agenda is popular or not. So the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, just to situate this, fits primarily in 3 of our 4 strategic buckets: block, build, and win. Blocking a MAGA takeover at the state level, building toward a progressive future in Wisconsin, and winning so we can build more wins on top of that. And I just want to acknowledge, we don't have as much time as we want to innovate, but they're doing as much as they can and just going all hands on deck to win. So without further ado, I want to introduce our amazing Wisconsin State Advisor, Rima Ahmed, who has been deep in the work in Wisconsin for a long time. And she's not just a program officer who sits behind a desk and occasionally does site visits like a regular funder and figures out how to give money away. Rima is a long-term senior organizer and meta organizer who's been working side to side in the Wisconsin ecosystem for many years with our partner organizations. She coaches and helps convene and challenge partners and engages in so many levels of strategy about how to transform the state. It's so great to have you, Rima. And we're actually going to try a new format for this call, which is Rima's going to basically host and give some context. And then facilitate a conversation with a couple of incredible leading organizers in the state. So welcome, Rima. Tell us
Hel-
about Wisconsin.
Hello, everyone. Hello from Wisconsin. Folks may know I'm Rima Ahmed. I use she, her pronouns. As Billy said, I'm a Wisconsin State Advisor. I live in Milwaukee. I'm from Milwaukee. This is a place that, it's the place that I'm from and I care about. And Wisconsin, what folks missed before joining when we were talking about the weather is that it's very cold. But in the words of one organizer I spoke with today, it's cold out here, but we cannot and will not be frozen into inaction. And so that's why we're here tonight. We're here because people are taking an evening of their time to learn about Wisconsin because we all want ways we can take action right now. Action that is meaningful, that is strategic, and that gives us more ground to keep fighting everywhere else. And so we're talking about Wisconsin because it's right here, where a proxy fight that is critically important is underway. This is the first major election of Trump's first 100 days. On April 1st is the election. We'll get into that in a minute, but you don't have to take my word for it that this is a critically important election for all of us, whether you live here or you live somewhere else. Because I know we're all sick of hearing about the other person in the White House, Elon Musk. But just this week, Elon Musk's super PAC invested $1.6 million into this race. And he knows that this race will be a signal of how much support the Trump administration has in a state that has decided the presidency the last few cycles. So again, the fight against a burning Rome is right here. So as Billy said, over the next 20 minutes or so, we've got some great organizers from Wisconsin, leaders from the state. We're going to be hearing from them. We'll have a talk show style conversation. But before we get into that, I want to remind folks about the journey that Wisconsin has been on. Because if you've heard me talk about Wisconsin before, then you know that we are clawing our way back from the edge of a vast far right abyss. And that's, I want to make sure we got the slide right here. So folks may know that, right here, Wisconsin, well, actually, I don't know that folks know this. Actually, I don't know if folks know this. Wisconsin has actually been a progressive leader in the country. And I know the last few cycles maybe haven't proven this, but I want to set the record straight because I'd be remiss if I didn't. That we had the first kindergarten in the country. We're the birthplace of public sector unions, but we're also human, which means that when Dems had a trifecta briefly in 2008 to 2010, we blew it. We didn't deliver on the policies that materially improve the lives of people. That and the Tea Party movement in 2010 meant that that brought in a Republican trifecta under the leadership of Governor Scott Walker. And let's call him the OG because before Trump was running through pens with executive order after executive order, Walker was running the state with a mandate. He was slashing student funding that dismantled student organizing infrastructure, and he ended public sector bargaining with Act 10. And so really it was in 2018, which is the story here that I want to show starts. In 2018, what happened is we defeated Scott Walker, right? This was one of the first big elections in which MVP was investing in grassroots organizing, and it was a historically close race. But that is where we ended this GOP rule. And I said before that it took 10 years of far right investment and laboratory style policy making in Wisconsin to get to the point where we're at. And it'll take at least that time to get out of this. And so, we started in 2018. In 2020, we defeated Trump, right? We were part of the tipping point. We tipped the favor for Biden. In 2023, we flipped the state Supreme Court. The last time we actually had a state Supreme Court race in the state. And this is where a liberal Judge Janet won in a landslide. Our partners at MVP were part of this victory, making sure that in a race that was the most expensive race in state Supreme Court history, not only in Wisconsin, but across the country, where voters were inundated with mailers and TV, that there were trusted messengers in the form of organizers and canvassers and phone bankers that were talking to voters to help them make meaning of this race. And we won. It worked. And that meant that in 2024, we had fair maps at last. And I'm so proud to say, because we don't often get to celebrate our wins, and there's a lot that was overshadowed with the top of the ticket. But just in November, we had the Democrats actually flip 10 seats in our state assembly, which was huge. We were able to get rid of a Republican supermajority in our state Senate. And this sets us up for where we're heading after this year in 2026. We have a chance to make a play for a Democratic trifecta. And it's going to be so important. And I think some folks might not be on mute, and I'll just make sure you know that you're not on mute right now in case you're saying something you don't want other folks to hear. But in 2026, we have a chance to make a play for a trifecta. Our governor's race will be up. The rest of the state Senate will be up for election. And with more time, we will be able to find more candidates to run for state assembly races as well. And so the question is can we get there? Can we get through this year? Can we get through a really important race this year? And I want to, if we can move to the next slide, I want to tell folks, if you haven't heard about what is happening with our state Supreme Court race, I'll give you a quick lowdown. We've got a state Supreme Court that has 7 justices on it. They each serve 10-year terms. It's technically a nonpartisan race, but it has been very politicized, both in 2023 and again in this year. And what we're fighting for right now is the is the ideological leaning of the court. We were able to secure a liberal leaning court in 2023. And in that time, like I said, we got fair maps for the first time in 12, 13 years, which is incredible. We need to keep this moving forward, because what's at stake is that we still have an anti-abortion law on the books. We will be hearing a case to, once and for all get rid of Act 10. So we've got collective bargaining on the docket, not to mention democracy as we know it, because folks may not know this, but when the Trump campaign challenged the results of the election in 2020 and wanted to throw out our electors in 2020, our state Supreme Court, which was then conservative leaning, only decided to throw out the Trump case on a technicality. And so what we're trying to say here is that there's still very much there's a lot at stake. And if history tells us anything, and Wisconsin continues to be an important state in our electoral math for the next federal election, it's going to be very important that we've got a court that respects democracy and that will hold down the votes of the people. And so with that, I want to make sure that we have some time to talk with some people who live and breathe this election, live and breathe building real power, real progressive people power in my state, in Wisconsin. So if we can go to the next slide, I just want to highlight these 2 great speakers we have. There are so many amazing partners that we have in the state. I'm so fortunate to have over 40 partners that we work with in Wisconsin. And so while we can't have everybody come and join us on these calls, we're very, very fortunate to have some really incredible people in Mandela Barnes and Janelle Ludwig Cross joining us tonight. And this is where, honestly, I'm going to do a quick introduction, but I invite you to grab your hot drink of choice. I've got my Face the Nation mug right here with some tea. But we're going to be having a conversation about this race and about the elections and how we continue on this trajectory in Wisconsin. But really quickly, Mandela Barnes needs no introduction. Our former lieutenant governor, who now is running program and leading efforts in C4 and C3 and PAC spaces. An incredible Mandela Barnes, and Janelle, who 5 years ago established a grassroots organization in Western Wisconsin called GROW. Grassroots Organizing Western Wisconsin has been building people power from the ground up. I want to invite them both to come and join us on the screen.
Hey, Rima, thank you so much.
Yeah, so good to be here with everyone.
And good to see you.
Yeah,
we're both traveling right now, it looks like.
Yeah, do that.
I'm at a Culver's. I'm not sure where you are.
I'm in my hotel room.
Thank you both. Yes, in spite of being on the road and traveling, so appreciate y'all coming and joining. And, we're going to be having a conversation. We're going to be talking about our state, and I'll just get right into it because I want to make sure we've got time to talk and also time to engage in some Q&A with other folks who are here today. But to kick things off, the first question here is, why should we care about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race on April 1st? And actually, I'll just turn it over to you, Mandela, if you want to, give us a shot. Maybe tell us a little bit about also the work that you're doing. But why should people care?
All right, I'll be very formal and just first say thank you for all your work in organizing the organizers, because that is not easy. And want to thank just all the whole MVP team. Want to thank you, Billy, for all your support, all your friendship. But to answer the question, this race will determine the balance of power, the state Supreme Court. And Wisconsin is often seen as a bellwether. It's a place where good ideas either come from and blossom into amazing federal policy, but unfortunately, it's also been a place where some bad ideas have done the same exact thing. Rima talked a little bit about how we were able to defeat Scott Walker in 2018. I was incredibly proud to be a part of that ticket. But I like to remind people that if Scott Walker didn't get elected in 2010 and usher in his era of destruction, I don't think that a Donald Trump presidency would have even been possible. And so people see the things that happen here in Wisconsin. Ultimately, it begins to become a trend for the entire country. We say as goes Wisconsin, as goes the rest of the country. Well, largely that has been true. From a policy standpoint, that has absolutely been true. And Rima also mentioned that the most recent Supreme Court race 2 years ago was the most expensive. We fought hard. So many folks, I'm sure a lot of people here on the call invested so much money, so many resources, so much time to ensure that we took back to state Supreme Court. And now we have folks like Elon Musk who decided that this is going to be a race that he wants to buy. And that comes at an incredible cost for the people of the state of Wisconsin and the people of the rest of this country. We have to be able to provide a buffer to Elon Musk and the White House to be able to protect whatever level of sanity that we have worked so hard to attain. But besides that, abortion rights are going to be decided by the court. The right to collectively bargain will be decided by the court. The fact that we were able to get 10 new seats in the state assembly and 4 in the state senate is because we had new maps that were passed by the governor because the Supreme Court was going to take up the maps. And now there's also an opportunity for our federal maps to be considered to get us out of this 5-3 Republican to Democrat ratio, which does not represent the political population, the political, actually not the political population, well, yeah, the political population. We're a 50-50 state. 5-3 does not coincide with the voting public. So I don't want to get too wordy there. Just definitely want to pass it on to Janelle. I know we only have so much time, but those are the top lines for this race.
Yeah, huge. Thanks, Mandela. And I'm gonna I'm really grateful for the big picture perspective that Mandela has just shared. And I'm gonna get really granular. So it's really good to be with you all. A lot of appreciation to MVP. MVP was the first funder of GROW organization back in 2020. And it set us on a course that's been really exciting for us. But our organization is based in rural Western Wisconsin. So I organize mostly conflicted white people. And for the people that I organize with in Western Wisconsin, the reason we care about this Wisconsin Supreme Court race is democracy. We fought really, really hard to get new maps, and we're really excited to have the new maps that we have. And we want to maintain a Supreme Court that continues to support the will of the people being represented in our government. The number 2 reason is that a huge fight that we have in rural Wisconsin is against agribusiness. The truth is that our communities are being used as mines to line the pockets of the people in agribusiness. They're taking away all of our resources and leaving us with the bill. And that looks like destroyed roads, that looks like destroyed property values, that looks like polluted lakes and rivers and the water that we drink, literally having manure in our water. And that's not okay. And when we look at the potential changes on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, it really alarms us. Brad Schimmel has proven over and over and over again that he is pro agribusiness and anti the will of the people being represented in Madison. And so why this matters to us is because it is directly linked with our ability to live with dignity and have the freedom that we need to thrive in Wisconsin.
Incredible. Yeah. I mean, what I'm hearing here is that clearly the stakes are high, and the stakes are high not only in the political implications for all of us, regardless of where we live, but it affects real people in places all across our state. And so thinking about this, I want to pivot because we talk about the journey that Wisconsin has been on from 2018 to now, and that this is a building block for us, right? We're going to get through this election, and with the help of supporters across the country and the hard work of so many groups like the ones we've got presenting here today, we will hopefully win. But I want to dig a little bit more into what it's going to take, right? What is it going to take for us to get through not only April, but if we're looking towards that state, that Democratic trifecta at the state level in 2026, if we're even looking beyond that, right? If we're looking at the Senate and the presidential races in 2028, what are we going to do right here? And I'll maybe start and say that, like, folks may not realize this, because I know in other parts of the country, folks have had some time to, maybe reflect a little bit about the results of the November election. Maybe, do some, ton of conversations and try to, analyze what's going on. We just had some analysis come out today on the C4 end in our state around, what were the beginning to analyze through the Van data, what actually happened in November. But folks have been organizing around the spring race for at least the last few weeks, because we've got this race in 40 days. And so, Billy said a little bit earlier that, like, in the block, build, innovate, win spectrum, we're innovating where we can, but honestly, the hard look we're going to do and the hard reflection is going to happen after this race. But again, I guess coming back to this question is, what is it going to take right now to win in April, but from there, win the state trifecta in 2026 and these wins beyond? So in no particular order, I don't know which one of you wants to kick us off, Janelle or Mandela.
Go for it, Mandela.
Well, I would say in order for us to win, we got to get people actually engaged again. And it sounds like a very easy answer, but it's not. I say it's not easy because there is a lot of voter depression right now. A lot of people who have been exhausted from the most recent presidential election and have been absolutely let down. A lot of people who see what is going on right now coming out of DC and feel utterly hopeless and also powerless. And so as organizers and organizations, it's important that we do remind people how much power they do still have. It's important to remind people that if we are to sit and just let the worst things happen to us, it's not just us as individuals or the people that we're communicating with who are going to bear the brunt of it. It is the most vulnerable. It is the folks who are least likely to be contacted by any organizer or organization. It's the folks who are so absolutely checked out, just given the lives that folks have been forced to live for so long, working multiple jobs, taking care of children, dealing with an uncertain economy, people who are facing layoffs and unjust firings at the hands of this truly out of control, tyrannical White House. And so these conversations are going to be a lot more difficult right now. We're talking about people who could potentially see their Medicaid benefits cut. These are veterans who may see delays in being able to receive certain service given cuts at the VA. Any sort of agency that you can think of at the federal government and the broad reach of it, we have to remind people of the impact of it. And we also have to keep it real with people and saying that, look, this Supreme Court race will not change everything. In fact, the things that you are talking to us about as concerns, maybe they will, maybe they won't be impacted by the Supreme Court. But the reality is there's Elon Musk, who is right here, the richest man in the entire world, who is trying to dictate your life, the man who has had who has amassed untold sums of wealth, who is trying to tell you what you as a private citizen do or do not deserve. We cannot allow these ultra wealthy, out of touch people to determine how everyday people in the state of Wisconsin get to live their lives. This is an opportunity for you to take power back. This is an opportunity for you to stand up and show up, not just for yourself, but an opportunity for you to show up for your friends, your family members, your loved ones. And this is the type of race where if we aren't successful, if we lose the state Supreme Court to Elon Musk, that spells out doom for the midterm. And not saying that it'll make the midterm impossible. What I am saying is that it will make the work of winning the midterm, especially here in Wisconsin, that much more difficult. I think the people need to see some sort of momentum, but also every election is an opportunity for us to do some organizing around issues as well, so we can continue to hold elected officials accountable. And honestly, it really does feel as if we need to hold our own accountable more than ever now. Everybody gets what's going on with Donald Trump and the willingness of Republicans to go along with everything. But what people don't see is the type of direct action that we should be seeing from more Democratic members of Congress, more Democratic governors, more Democratic attorneys general across the country. And so if we can if we can use this as an opportunity to talk to people and truly relay those messages, because they are going to be asking, what are Democrats doing? Even though this is a nonpartisan race, that will be the question. And we get to, bring those messages back to the elected officials we work with or don't every day.
Yeah. I love being on this call with you, Mandela, because I feel like we both bring really different perspectives, and I really appreciate 100% everything that you just said. But I'm going to bring it down to like the work that I know in my day-to-day life, organizing in Western Wisconsin, and what it's going to take to win and to continue to win and build a Wisconsin that is completely different than what we're living in right now is year-round organizing. And I know that MVP has been saying this to y'all for a long time, and hopefully that's why you're on this call and that's why you believe in this way of creating change. But when the political containers that we have at our disposal right now are not fitting for our people. Right now, less than half of people in our country, in Wisconsin, identify with a political party. We need to build containers of belonging through year-round organizing where people can leave their sense of powerlessness and enter into organizing, find their agency, find their power, find their voice, create the change that they need to see. And so for me, like, how do we win? How do we create a Wisconsin that is completely different? Is we organize year-round on the ground around issues that matter most to people that are connected with their interest. Like, in our community, there are huge factory farms spewing out tens of millions of gallons of manure that are harming us. People across Wisconsin, it's not a rural problem, it's a US problem, it's a world problem, have mold in their homes. They don't feel safe. Their landlords are not there. They can't afford their housing. Like, all of these things are making people feel very powerless and disconnected from the political process. And we need to create containers and power vehicles like GROW, like all of the other organizations that MVP is supporting, to create on-ramps out of powerlessness and into agency, to know in our guts that we can make the government work for us and we can make the economy work for us. And the only way to do that is to invite people into their agency.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, both of you. Again, you're representing the variety of different work that's happening in the state, across our state, and the different entry points for that, the different motivations for this. And I know I want to make sure we've got a good amount of time to engage in some Q&A. I see that there's some questions in the chat, and so maybe is this like as our last kind of like group discussion conversation, a twist on what we're building long term. So if we're about transforming Wisconsin long term, as we've been saying, as we've been repeating, right? This is the path we're on. Here's where we're at. Here's what we've accomplished so far. But if this is what we're trying to do, and if it's not just about winning elections, although we want to win and we are winning, right? Elections are important pressure tests for how much power we are building, where we're at in our power. And it tells us like when we're winning, keep going. And when we have some setbacks, where we need to adjust. But if this is what we're serious about, if this is what we're being disciplined about, I want to know what is giving you hope right now as we are seeing. I mean, Billy started this call with Rome is burning, and it is scary. I don't want to diminish this. And maybe I'm projecting here because I feel hopeful here in Wisconsin because I've got something to do. I have a way that I can act right now. And so I want to invite both of you. How are you as you are situating the work that you're doing in this long-term work? And we need to win elections, but it's not only about that. What is giving you hope to keep going?
I could go first on this one if you want. The Saturday after the November election, we launched our teams to already be preparing for the spring election. We launched 4 county teams that dug into who they want to endorse so that we can win on the issue campaigns that we have locally. So these are town boards that besides the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, all of our town board supervisors are up for re-election in the spring. And, I'm sure you all can remember how you felt then, and you probably feel very similar things right now. Like, it was a tough moment for us right after that election, and yet I showed up on a Zoom call with 78 other leaders from our organization saying, all right, what is next? What is next? What are we going to do next? What is the next risk that we can take? What is the next strategic bet that we can make to create different conditions for our community, like right away in April? Other things that give me hope: in December, right before the holidays, we won an operations ordinance to put guardrails around what agribusiness can do in our community. And it was in the town of Maiden Rock, which is a beautiful little town on the St. Croix River, the west side of Wisconsin. And the Maiden Rock Town Board usually has, a few people who show up to it, but this day there were 100 people. The room was completely packed. There were people with Trump hats in that room. There were people wearing their fancy Patagonia wear in that room. There were everyone across the political spectrum, but we were united in wanting to protect our communities from huge corporate power that is strangling our ability to thrive. And that gives me hope. It gives me hope that we can find shared interests, we can find shared values, and we can win on the things that are most important to us. And that is the kind of organizing that I feel is paving a way forward for us.
Yeah. Also, I want to add too, it seems like you had pretty decent results in the La Crosse mayoral primary, if I'm not mistaken. So that's something to be pretty proud of. And one thing I'm pretty excited about, or it gives me optimism, is the rallies that we have been seeing. And I'll say this is going to sound very counter to a lot of our narrative, but the rallies that have been popping up, they've been a lot smaller than they were 8 years ago. And the reason I say that I'm optimistic about that is because it is a little bit easier and it's more popular to show up at the large scale, well-attended rallies. You look at it as an event, you're like, oh, I'll go see my friends, they'll be at this rally. But you got people who are in smaller numbers at these rallies across the country, at different state capitals, different city halls, but they are folks who are truly, truly dedicated, showing up because they will not go silently along with this. And it's not just a moment where everybody's doing it, so I'm going to show up to a rally. I think that it is important that we keep the momentum, keep these folks energized and engaged, especially at a time where we have such an important race going on in Wisconsin. And I do think that as difficult and challenging as things have been since November, the fact that people are asking the questions, the fact that people are willing to challenge leadership, even if it is our own leadership in this moment, I think that is something that's necessary, and it's something that gives me optimism.
Oof. Thank you. Thank you both so much for sharing that. I have to take a deep breath because I'm hopeful, and I know that we still have 40 days to get this part of the job done. But I want to open it up to some Q&A, and I know we've got some questions in the chat. And I'm wondering if, Billy or, Zoe, if y'all could help us surface some of these questions to bring forward with the time that we've got.
Yeah. So a couple questions. One, questions about Susan Crawford. Tell us a little bit more about her. And just to clarify, there's Democrats are, there's a 4-3 Democratic leaning majority. There's one seat up. If we lose that seat, they have a 4-3 majority and everything changes. Tell us more about the dynamics of the race with Susan Crawford, and also some questions about what, like, granularly, tell us more granularly what it looks like. We want to hear stories, specific conversations. What are you hearing on the ground in Wisconsin? And Mary asks, what does it mean to invite people into their agency? But I just want to ask you more broadly, like, what are the conversations that you're having that are really sticking out in your brains right now? Like, and you too, Rima, like you shared this story of this teacher who was getting deported, and share your stories and also your take on the race.
Yeah, I can maybe kick us off and say a little bit about Susan Crawford. So again, Susan, we've got two candidates that are running for the state Supreme Court race, a liberal candidate and a conservative candidate. Our liberal candidate's named Susan Crawford. She's a Dane County judge. And, among the things that she is known for is, she represented Planned Parenthood in the past. And so she has been signaling, the values that she has that inform her desire to continue her leadership, and now moving that leadership on up to hopefully representing us in the highest court of the state. And against her is a former attorney general who has a long list of ways that he's frankly let the people of Wisconsin down, let democracy down. And I honestly don't want to give too much airtime to the opponent, to the conservative in the race, but what we're looking at is another case that we can make for protecting democracy in the state, for ensuring the reproductive rights of people in the state. And I said it before, we've got collective bargaining, a case around collective bargaining that will be making it to the court this year. And so we need to make sure that we hold on to the liberal leaning of the court so that this case is heard, and that the rights of people to organize, the rights of unions, are reinstated and protected in our state. So I'll just, get that piece out of the way, and certainly, if you want to learn more about the candidate, there are places to learn about that, and there are organized efforts behind her. But I want to maybe point to, I know the question that was, I think, posed to you, Janelle, around what does it mean to situate yourself or step into your agency, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, I'll take that one, and I'll throw a story in there too. So I mentioned that we organize around agribusiness, and we're a small team of 6, but we have worked with thousands of grassroots leaders. These are regular folks that have decided that they don't want to be on the sidelines anymore, and they want to be part of creating the change that they want. And so there's one gentleman that came to one of our meetings, and we were talking about the impact that agribusiness has on our water quality. And this gentleman said that when the county had previously asked him for a sample of his well water, he hadn't given it because it was none of the government's business what was happening in his well water. And by being at this meeting and understanding, like receiving the political orientation, the political education of what was happening, he, within one meeting, he moved from that attitude, like the government doesn't need to know, to I want to testify at the county board meeting, and we need to start getting our water tested. So this is someone who came from an approach like the government is bad, which is what has been the dominant message that we've all heard for decades, to an orientation that we call towards agency, to like, no, I can make the government work for me, and the government can have a role, and I'm going to use my voice and talk to the county board supervisors and make that happen. So that's what I mean about like stepping into our agency, is like going from I'm on the sidelines, I don't want to have anything to do with this, to like I have something to say here. This matters to me.
Thank you. And actually, just a quick follow-up, we've been hearing a lot about farmers getting hit really hard in, especially in western and northern Wisconsin. Are you seeing that a lot from Trump's policies, and how is that playing out?
Yeah, I think it's going to start being felt, but the reality is that it's been a really rough ride for a really long time for farmers in Wisconsin. We used to have 168,000 dairy farms in Wisconsin. We now have fewer than 5,000 dairy farms. That means a lot of people's way of life and like attachment to the land, like what had been true for generations is no longer true for them. And they've gone from owning their own business basically to working really low paying jobs that don't make ends meet. So that's been really, really tough, and it's just going to get worse because the way that our farm economy works is that it involves a lot of government subsidies, and farmers take on huge amount of debts for their equipment, for buying seed, and without the government assistance, like it's barely been enough to keep those like 5,000 dairy farms afloat. And without that assistance, it's going to be far worse, and there's going to be there'll be more farms closing, more feelings of powerlessness and shame that is not it is not their fault, but what people experience is shame. And that's why we need that like year-round organizing. Like we need civic engagement. We need power vehicles to help people make sense of what is happening to them in their life and give them that opportunity, that on-ramp into creating the world that will work for them.
I just want to quickly piggyback off of this because, everything Janelle is saying, like, hopefully is driving home the material ways that people are experiencing this new administration. And I'll just add another point. I met with the Wisconsin Farmers Union, another organization that's in our ecosystem out here. And, they're helping create a wedge. They're helping to show the contradictions for some of the farmers that are part of their membership, where, people think of USAID, the defunding of USAID as like a federal impacting, just like our stance in a international player in the world. But where do you think the grains, the food, the humanitarian aid that's sent out via USAID, where do you think that comes from? We have some farmers here who are out $70,000 after this money, these grants being, the USAID being, completely dismantled. And so organizations that are on the ground that exist year round help people, to Janelle's point, make meaning of what is happening in the world and help to expose the contradictions and do some of that block strategy work that I know we've also talked about in some of our previous calls around MVP's new framework. But Mendel, I want to give you a chance to share about the work that y'all are doing right now to help get Susan Crawford elected, to help us get across the finish line on April 1st.
For sure. So My organization, which I didn't even mention myself, you mentioned it, but Power to the Polls, the group has been around since 22, so third year in existence. I've been on board for 2 years now, and we are building up the grassroots infrastructure. I should say we have built it up, but as we all know, that is a process that work is never done. To put in perspective, the spring election 2 years ago, we did $1 million program to help support now Justice Janet Protasewicz. We did doors in Milwaukee, Green Bay, Racine. Fast forward to the fall 22 election, or excuse me, fall 24 election, we ran a $7.5 million program. We knocked on over 700,000 doors, but the most important number is the 93,000 contacts that we made. And in between that space, we found ourselves active in other races to get the reps, to make sure that we were having the most productive conversations we could possibly have. And we involved ourselves in the Green Bay City Council election. And we were able to help flip the Green Bay City Council for the first time. And I couldn't tell you when. And I'm not a boastful person by any means. I'm taking a lot of credit for this because, and not me, our organization is taking a lot of credit because we were the only outside spenders in that election cycle in Green Bay. And so now we have a program that we're running that has received incredible support from MVP, but we are not just knocking on doors, and we're not just knocking on doors during election season. This is year-round organizing. We engage people in the off season, and I honestly believe that's the reason why Milwaukee had the highest voter turnout of the 50 largest cities in the entire country. Milwaukee had the least significant swing to the right based on or compared to other major cities and swing states here, Chicago's, Philadelphia's, Detroit's. They saw swings of 3 to over 6%. Ours was 0.4%. And it's because we invested early. It's because we never took down the lines of communication between election cycles. And so we're knocking on doors. We invest in Black radio. We do digital and streaming services and also mail to complete our program. So we layer our communications. The people we talk to hear from us any and everywhere they go. And it is because of that we've been able to build significant relationships with the people whose doors we knocked on. And we do that because our organizers come directly from the communities that they're organizing in. And so this cycle, we are putting ourselves to the test once again. We're going to provide those layered communications as we have in the past. There is a very short window to get this done, but to go back to the question about the dynamics of this race, I do want to be very upfront here, and I've been saying this for the last year. Brad Schimel, who is the conservative candidate for the Supreme Court, this race won't be like it was 2 years ago. This is a completely different candidate. The guy 2 years ago, Dan Kelly, was a joke. He didn't take himself seriously. People didn't take him seriously. There wasn't significant investment on his side. There's a reason why people like Elon Musk are lining up to support Brad Schimel. He was the former attorney general here in Wisconsin. He won in 2014. He lost in 2018, which was a bad year for Republicans, and he lost by less than a point. So I want people to have that perspective to know what kind of candidate we are dealing with. He has been around the block before. He has won and he has lost statewide. This is a person we need to take absolutely serious. This is something I've been saying for the last year, because I want us to all be as locked in as we can possibly be with this race.
That is a compelling note to end on, and we're going to go right to next steps. We're going to put up a poll to see what you thought about this call and what you want to do going forward. And basically, our ask of you is to fund the organizing in Wisconsin. That is where the money from this call will go, to these organizations and others. And yeah, we are, if you want to donate online right now, if you want to talk to an advisor about options for donating, we are here and ready to support. This is where money will go overall in the first 100 days, just to bring back to the bigger picture. But the money we raise right now will go to Wisconsin. So with that, does everyone see this poll? All right. People are answering the poll. So we are going to close this call in a minute officially because we like to try to end on time. And then we're going to open it for informal office hours. And to the degree that our Wisconsin friends can stick around, you can ask some questions directly in a more informal setting. We'll also talk about some of the bigger pictures and the state of our organizing with MVP and what you can do. So with that, I am going to officially end the call right on time. And thank you so much, Rima, Mandela, Janelle, for your incredible work and for joining us in the middle of everything you're doing, and for everyone who joined us today. And I'm now going to open up office hours. So we can dive right into it. And in office hours, you can ask your burning questions first and foremost about Wisconsin and the Supreme Court race. I know there are a lot of questions we didn't quite get to in the chat, so let's try to get to those. You can ask about Wisconsin, what you heard on the call, and then we'll open it up for broader questions about the country and MVP strategy. You can use the Zoom raise hand feature or just share in the chat. And if we didn't answer your question, you want to repost it, we can make sure we get to all the questions. And when you're asking questions, just be mindful of time. Give us the context, who you are, where you're calling from, and any quick context, but be concise. And if you want to pitch something or give an advertisement, you can do that in the chat. But we want to save the talking time for things that are very topical to this. So thank you all so much. And I'm going to filibuster for a second and ask for more stories. Mandela, Rima, Janelle, other compelling stories that you've heard, and let's look at questions in the chat. Victoria, yes, the recording will automatically be sent out. Let's look at Lena, we'll get to your questions. A number of people asked about these House special elections, which we'll get to. Sadly, we don't think they're very competitive. We're watching them, especially the New York one, which doesn't have a date yet, but we believe it's our responsibility to focus first and foremost on things that we think there's a decent chance of winning. So, which is why we're focused on Wisconsin. So, Rima, Janelle, Mandela, what are some of the granular things that you think about that we wouldn't know here in non-Wisconsin land, that conversations you're having, etc.?
You know, I can kick us off. Oh, was somebody else unmuted? Oh, Mandela, did you want to share?
Yeah, because
I know
I
you
just
need to hit the road, so I want to give you.
yeah. So I'll just go ahead and just like repeat the urgency that I did before. I don't have a specific story. I just have a very specific view of this moment that we're in, who we're dealing with, and what this could potentially mean. So, you know, we know the stories, we know the climate that we're dealing with, and we know what people are frustrated with, what they're not frustrated with, and the fact that Brad Schimmel had to say that I'm not being bought or anything after Elon Musk made the first announcement of the money. Tells you exactly what's going on. I've had a lot of people support me in my day. I've never had to make that disclaimer because it was always abundantly clear where I stood. So just want to again thank everybody.
You said I'm
right.
not being bought?
Yeah. Yeah.
So sorry, keep going.
No, that was just the point I want to make, is that him having to even say that, it truly means it truly shows you just the chaos that we're dealing with. And the people we talk to, even if they aren't as down on Donald Trump, even if they aren't as critical of Donald Trump, they absolutely despise Elon Musk. And that is the person who, in my mind, it does us a great deal to make sure people know is the enemy here.
And how are you talking about the messaging with Power to the Polls? Like, what are you saying to people on doors and in the messaging?
Yeah, and honestly, some of that messaging is going to change. Like some of these scripts are now going to change given the outsized influence and given people's reaction to them. So, scripts were pretty general about the same things that they were before, about people's freedoms, about people being able to make their own choices, about people's quality of life. And now I do see a world where even if our scripts at the doors don't change, certainly in digital, we'll be invoking this new boogeyman we have.
Mhm. All right, time to turn the tables.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Well,
Mandela, and we're rooting for you.
hey, thank you. Yep. Well, thank you. Good to see everybody.
Oof. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry. There was like another story I was going to share, but I feel, just to Mandela's point that, we had a primary election just a couple days ago, y'all. And thankfully the Supreme, we did not have to have a primary around the Supreme Court race, but when I tell you all, folks have not had a chance to skip a beat. When I say like we went from November, quick deep press, maybe a cry in the closet, right? And then like out in the streets again, out in community again. I'm not exaggerating or overstating. And I think Janelle, you told a great story of like what you all did right after the election too. The container y'all created for people to make meaning and take stock of the moment we're in. And so maybe what I'll say is, 100% the urgency. And I saw a question in the chat about, sending postcards and when should you send things if you're sending things. I want folks to know that early voting will be starting. I should have this date memorized, but it has been crazy. Early voting will start in Wisconsin on the 17th, March 17th and 18th that week. And so if you're writing postcards and trying to send it, it might be wise to get that sent ahead of that. I just saw that question, so I wanted to knock that one out. But I want to talk about, block, build, innovate, win, not because this is a framework MVP is going with, but because it's not linear. And so the work that is happening right now in our state is we're blocking where we have power, right? We are not ceding ground. We are blocking a Trump agenda where we can. And Billy mentioned a story about an MPS teacher. Here in Milwaukee, just last week, we had a teacher's aide in Milwaukee Public Schools, an asylum seeker from El Salvador who was told that when she had her Valentine's Day check-in with USCIS that she was going to face deportation. And what did she do? She sounded the alarm to our local statewide immigrant rights organizations. Y'all have heard from them before, probably Voces de la Frontera Action. And, because of the world we're in, because of the heads of all these different social media companies are part of Trump's agenda, part of Trump's, they are Trump supported themselves. This group couldn't advertise that they were mobilizing forces, mobilizing community to show up for this teacher on Facebook. We did it through word of mouth. We did some old school through trusted relationship phone trees, through trusted like email groups, not mass listservs. And we're able to mobilize on a day where it was -9 degrees. And that's just the temperature that was clocked, not the feels like temperature, y'all. Okay. -9 degrees, Friday morning, 7:30 a.m. outside of the USCIS office. We had over 100 people show up for this MPS teacher to show that we are in solidarity with her, to show those immigration officers and those trying to enact a Trump agenda that we are watching you. And thank goodness, I am proud to say the win there is that she was given an extension to continue applying for her T visa, and this is just these wins, and it's crazy that the bar is on the floor, but these wins matter when we're trying to help people make meaning of right now and trying to direct our action collectively towards the other moments we can have impact. So today we're holding a line for our community. Tomorrow we're voting. The day after that, we're going to be in the streets again. And so, yeah, that's just one thing I wanted to uplift, that it's happening all at the same time. And we're fortunate in Wisconsin that we've got a date to direct our attention to, but we're also impacted by all these other things that folks in other cities and states are reeling from as well. So yeah, Janelle, I know you wanted to share some more stories too or add, but feel free. I don't want to take up all the oxygen here.
No, it's so beautiful. It's a great story. And I feel like that's like when there are actions that we can take that are directly aligned with our self-interest, what we want to see happen in the world, that's when people can get really energized and move from like, maybe I vote when there's an election, to like, I am going to organize year round and I'm going to vote and I'm going to organize my friends and my network to vote too. And so, yeah, that's a beautiful story. And yeah, I thought I'd share. I know there were lots of questions about agency, and so I wanted to share just a little bit about, at Grow, we always say the campaign is the curriculum. And what's really important for us about year-round organizing is that we're not like coming to people in a transactional way when it's an election and say, we need your vote for this, right? We're in relationship with people throughout the year. And the magic of that is the same as the magic of the story that Rima just told, is that through the campaign, we're inviting people that weren't maybe with us at the beginning to reconsider what is actually happening, to understand the playing field. So for example, for us, we're organizing a bunch of people that maybe typically would vote in a very conservative manner, but through this campaign, they are understanding where the players actually are on the chessboard and what is actually happening. So for example, the Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce is a lobbying group in Wisconsin that has really advanced the interests of agribusiness. And they've even sued a tiny little town of Eureka in our community for passing an operations ordinance to protect themselves from agribusiness, the type of lawsuit that could go all the way up to the Supreme Court. And so part of the magic of organizing and getting that opportunity to understand people really well and explore what's happening in our community together is that we get an opportunity to, in really concrete ways, align the values and the issues that our people care about with the candidates. We know that many people don't trust the Democratic Party, but deep down inside, they actually align on values and issues. And so through our organizing, we need to overcome the boxes that are too small for us, the boxes of the political parties that are too small for us, so that we can allow our people to truly vote what's aligned with their values and self-interest. And so I just really, like, as we close this out, I just really want to celebrate like the vision that MVP has and the investment that all of you are making in building a world that really reflects what we need as human beings. Like, how can we put our people and our planet first? And it starts like exactly by investing in the kinds of organizations that you're investing in, where we create these new possibilities for people in our communities to act differently in the world.
Wow. I could listen to your stories and analysis for so long. Oh, I see a question from Marcia Venicelli. Did I say your name right? Oh, you are on mute, Marcia. And while you're coming off mute,
Hi. Yeah. Is it okay to give a number to text me at for Wisconsin postcards? I've already put it in the chat, but I would love to share it with people who can also hear me.
oh, yes.
617-499-9992. Really easy to do postcards, only 3 words of writing. We provide the postcards and the address labels.
Oh, thank you so much, Marcia. And you
Okay,
did put
thank
that in the
you.
chat. And I actually want to take a moment to lift up the pretty amazing responses in this poll. It looks like, let me see if I'm reading this right. When asked about donating, let me see. I'm trying to look at this this poll. When asked about donating, 62 people said they're inspired to donate for the first time. Another 39 have already contributed. That's amazing. And one person is looking at giving over 5K. Yay. Did this briefing inspire you to help organize other donors with MVP? This is even more exciting. First of all, 30 of you already volunteer with MVP. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. And another 37 said maybe, and 7 said yes, I want to do more. Please contact me. That is huge. And I can't tell you, and I don't know if Sharon Grinker's still on here, who's one of our amazing volunteers who's based in Milwaukee, but it makes such a difference when someone says, okay, you know what? I love you guys. I love donating to you. I'm just going to jump in with you and be part of MVP and be part of our organizing team. It looks like we lost Sharon, but she has been an incredible organizer and partner to REMA in Milwaukee, organizing donors in Wisconsin to fund locally. And that is what we want to build all over the country. That is what we're building all over the country. So just thank you all so much. And I want to lift that up. And are there any other questions and hot topics? If not, I want to bring in, first of all, anything else, Rima, that you want to share or that you want to share, Janelle, that just occurs to you? Because I think we're all just hungry to hear, like, what's it like in Wisconsin? What are people saying? I see a question from Charles Spiegel. Charles, jump on in. Welcome. And Charles, where are you calling from? Can we unmute Charles?
Yeah, I'm calling from San Francisco, and and former airlift person. My question is what the effect of the superintendent of education's election is likely to be on the court race.
Oh, thank you. First of all, anyone who doesn't know Airlift, we love Airlift. Wonderful partner that we just joined forces with. So Charles, welcome to the team. And yeah, and Rima, do you want to speak to that? And also what else is on the ballot? There's quite a bit of other stuff on the ballot besides the Supreme Court race that some of it very concerning.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Charles. So I know, I mean, the hook really for people to come here is to know about the Supreme Court race because it was, this historic race in 2023 that was the most expensive in history. It does have implications for folks in Wisconsin, but also folks across the country as well. And like I said, it's been this proxy. But you're absolutely right. We've got other things on the ballot on April 1st, and it's no joke. That's actually, that's actually election day. And so DPI, for folks who may not know, the Department of Public Instruction is our education superintendent in the state. And we had a primary. This is one of the races where we had a primary on Tuesday, just the day before yesterday, where there were 3 candidates running, one who was like explicitly like Republican backed, another who was quasi-conservative backed. And then we've got our Jill Underly, our current incumbent Department of Public Instruction superintendent. And I think what's scary is that there are folks in the state and across the country, those that are, about dismantling the federal Department of Education, those who are spewing, basically far right messaging around who and what our children should be, educated, who are looking at the DPI race and thinking that there's an opportunity to flip this race. And so it is frightening. It's something that, groups are regrouping now in real time now that we are on the other side of this primary election the day before yesterday. Because I think it was surprising to see the type of support that the conservative candidate received. That being said, I think it's also important to know that Jill Underly and the DPI race in general is seen as a proxy for support around our governor, who was previously at DPI, who is seen as the education governor. And so just as the other side smells an opportunity to flip, we have folks here in state who understand the stakes that are on our side if we do not hold on to this race. And it's not by accident that in the backdrop to this race, we have a state budget fight, and we have perhaps the boldest state budget that the governor has put forward, in his tenure period. And in that budget, it includes some serious funding, historic even funding for special education and education in general. And that is something that our current DPI superintendent, Jill Underly, has been unapologetic in pushing for since the fight around the state budget, first started right after the election, actually in November. So I'm not going to say that the pathway is fully clear, or that we, this is, a shoo-in win. We're going to have to fight. But what we're seeing is that on our side, folks are doubling down, because just as, Trump and his cronies and the MAGAists in our state see the Supreme Court race as an indictment on their leadership, depending on how it goes, so too do we know in our state that how the DPI race goes will, that there's a way that this is seen as a proxy and a reflection on support for the governor. So I hope that gets at some of your question, Charles.
Thank you, Rima. And do we have, by the way, Rima could spend hours telling you about all the details of all the elections. So in terms of the last few minutes, first of all, I want to bring on Regina Clemente, who's our amazing director of donor organizing, and any of our super volunteer organizers. I see many of you on this call. If you want to share anything about the organizing you're doing, how's it going talking to people about Wisconsin? How are you thinking about your organizing? What's the energy like? Love to get a pulse check on that. And also, Janelle, want to come back to you. This model of belonging before belief that you talked about, that's I know core to Grow and a growing number of organizations organizing philosophies, is like the problem with so much of transactional politics on the Democratic side is they try to be like beliefs. And people, if you don't have a sense of belonging, it's like white noise, or it's like the other team talking. And the really transformational thing that that Grow and a growing number of organizations are doing is really leaning into building that community, where people have a sense of belonging, similar to the way people feel about a mega church. This is us, this is our people, we're a we. And then shared beliefs come out of that. So that is why organizing is so profound and essential to everything that we need to do to transform our country. So Regina, you want to give how's it going with donor organizing land? And anyone else from our volunteer crew should feel free to jump in as well.
Yeah, it's going great. And like you said, a ton of our volunteers are on this call tonight. And we've said it before, but I'm going to say it again just because it's more clear than ever. Billionaires are not going to save us. Existing funding from foundations has never been enough, and foundations are even scaling back more right now. And so we have to build a cross-class movement of donors to fund this work. The great news, we have an amazing team of staff and volunteers who focus on exactly this. We have 4 local volunteer-led and constantly growing hubs in places like the Bay Area, Washington State, Eastern Massachusetts, Western Massachusetts, and thousands of volunteers throughout the country who work with us nationally to hold in-person and remote events, who helped us raise over $12 million partisan dollars last year through these events. And we're building out this infrastructure and organizing program to be like the organizing we fund on the ground locally, but to organize folks to give to these groups on the ground. We have working groups. We're creating more spaces for donors and volunteers to gather to get the hard work done in pretty fun ways. We have social events from dances for democracy to anti-inaugural balls to cold plunges and swim fundraisers. And most importantly, we're a community supporting each other to organize our backyards or our local communities, which are sometimes sprawling networks. We're using our status as trusted messengers to bring much needed new funding to this movement work. And we know that so many more of our friends and our families and our alumni networks could be giving to this work if they were just, number one, asked, and number two, really understood that their funds will go directly to the local organizing work that is building power for today, tomorrow, and the next election cycle and the next 10 years. And so I know I saw a bunch of Mickey, Jan, Sally, multiple Larrys, Andrew, Dana, others on this call tonight. If any of you would like to share what your experience has been jumping into being a donor organizer in addition to a donor, we'd love to invite you to do that now. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Also, we'll be putting a link in the chat. You can sign up to be part of this awesome work on the volunteer form on our website. You can note that you're really interested in getting involved right away for this kind of comeback campaign. We're starting with Wisconsin. We're kicking off our fundraising push through house parties and events in the next few weeks. And you can also indicate that you like to get involved in a local hub or anything else like we do. We have ongoing thank you programs where volunteers are writing handwritten notes to donors. So lots to do, lots of money to raise, and so many folks that aren't contacted if we don't contact them. Any volunteers want to jump in and say a little bit about your experience? I know we're getting close to the end time here, so fine if not. Oh, I'll give it back to you, Billy.
Okay, well, let's close out. And I actually noticed in the chat a really important question from Kristen Martin about young people. What's it like organizing young people right now? And Rima, I'm going to ask you about the youth organizing happening in Wisconsin as a data point on that, and ask the two of you, Rima and Janelle, to close us out.
Oh yeah, thank you for that question. You know, I want to acknowledge that, you know, sometimes people come to these calls, MVP, and like we're a place for hope and optimism and action and energy. But I also hope folks know that they, you know, come here and you're going to get some real talk too. And so in answering your question, I can't paint a rosy picture on what it's like engaging folks that feel alienated by, you know, by our political systems. And I think Janelle did a really great job of pointing to stats that talk about how people feel like they don't have a political home, or even the fact that like our previous Surgeon General said we have an epidemic of loneliness in this country, and that is intergenerational, right? That is, you know, agnostic of age. And so, yeah, you know, the work that's happening among young people right now is one part making sure folks know that this election is happening. And, you know, I'm really proud that almost every group that I have spoken with, whether we're talking about Leaders Igniting Transformation, or 350 Wisconsin Action, or the Wisco Project, folks are very aware of the fact that we're talking about an election that's going to come up against spring break. So there's a lot of education that's happening to make sure where necessary, groups, you know, on various campuses where spring break will cut it too close to the April 1st election, that there are events to do early voting, and so people can get the voting out of the way. And where folks will actually be in school in session on April 1st, that there is momentum being built around what is at stake. And I said this in the chat when somebody else asked about the messaging or what are some of the issues that are driving voters right now. It's not to the same degree as 2023, but still what is important to people, a message that has continued to drive home the necessity to show up in this election is around protecting abortion. When we name that alongside blocking a Trump agenda, when we name that alongside the other type of decisions that the court is going to make, or the fact that we were able to get fair maps with this ideological leaning of the court, it actually really, it drives home the message of why people need to get out to vote. And we know that that was impactful with young people in 2023, and that it'll be impactful again with young people this time.
Thank you, Rima. And then Janelle, let's give you the last word. Close us out.
Great. Yeah, the thing that's coming to mind right now is, we need to create a bigger tent of who can be allowed to make decisions, who gets power in our world. And we often say that most of us are a mass of undigested experiences. And I just want to really celebrate the leadership that MVP is giving in the United States right now, and in Wisconsin in particular, to give organizations like GROW the time that it takes to digest experiences with people, make sense of our world, and act in ways that are really aligned with our self-interest and what our people need to be able to thrive. So it's been really great spending the evening with you all.
And you're at an organizer training retreat in Arizona right now, right? With organizers all over the country.
Yeah, I'm at a lead organizing cohort training put on by the organizing hub of the State Power Fund. And I'm here with people from Texas and North Carolina and Ohio and Michigan. And we are all getting in the trenches together and thinking really hard about what does it mean to create these containers of belonging? What does it mean to create agency for our people? What does it mean from moving people from a sense of powerlessness to having power? And powerlessness is what leads people to vote for an authoritarian. That's what we're up against, is how do we move people away from a feeling of powerlessness? That's the work that we have ahead of us.
That's so powerful. And just to let people know, this lead organizers training that you're part of is kind of the brainchild of Doran Schranz, from who we know from Faith in Minnesota. Your lovely neighboring straight across the way. And for anyone who doesn't know, we just are so excited. We just started contracting with Doran Schranz, who's like a mentor to so many organizers and executive directors all over the country with this brilliant Minnesota model. And she is helping us, just as she's helping so many other organizers dream about the next level of power building, the next level of base building. How do we, organizing is a craft. And the truth is, a lot, and this is like, the super real talk about what field organizing and voter mobilization has looked like in 2024. And part of what went wrong is that, honestly, a lot of it was superficial, and funder incentives and political incentives are like scale, quantity over quality. And when the money comes in last minute and they're like, how many doors are you going to knock? And that model corresponded with an old theory of change, which is, we have the voters, we just have to remind them to vote and turn them out. That's not true anymore. And so all of the groups that we're talking to are having like this big conversation internally about what does quality look like in not just canvassing, because frankly, a lot of the kind of fly-by-night vended canvassing was not the best canvassing. Canvassers were not trained to be excellent canvassers, who could have a full transformational conversation with people. So many organizations we're talking to are thinking not only about, how do they have better, deeper conversations on doors and better designed, canvas programs, where people aren't burning out and leaving, they're not losing a lot of a lot of people to turn over, but doing more of what you're doing, which is like this deep transformational trust building, local organizing based on self-interest, you know, and a sense of political awareness, and going from powerlessness and being alone to being part of a bigger we that feels a sense of stake in our country, in our politics, and in collective action, and in love and care and empathy over fear and alienation, and you know, and just like wanting to you know, us against them. So this is a really profound moment. It's a moment of truth in the organizing field where we're all looking in the mirror and saying, how do we do this better? And this cohort you're at, and if you want to say anything else more about it, we're all ears, but I know we're over time. I'm just so curious to hear, is on the front lines of, you guys are like struggling with, how do we do this better? How do we take this to the next level? So if you want to say anything else, you're welcome to. And otherwise, just want to say I'm so excited for the, you know, this is one of MVP's strategic priorities. You know, how do we support organizing to get better, not just more?
Yeah, thanks, Billy. I'll maybe tell one last story.
Yes,
you
that's what I was hoping for, is another
yeah,
story.
great. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned belonging before belief, and that's really at the heart of what we're talking about here. And I want to tell you all a story about a meeting that we had last year. So we have a campaign that works on agribusiness, on housing, a C4 campaign that does all of our electoral work, and we brought all of our top leaders together at what we called Grow Fest. And we honestly took a huge risk. We decided to dive really, really deep in political education and really starting to peel back the layers of what's happening to us in our community. How is it that the ruling class, the like 1% at the tippy top, are controlling everything? And how is it that, like, what are the tools that they're using to divide us? And we dug really, really deep at our opposition, and I went into that meeting with some trepidation because I didn't know if all of our leaders would come along this ride with us. Like, we asked a lot of questions along the way. We kind of digested some of that undigestible, like those experiences that many of us have that we haven't digested. Like, why is it that you're struggling on your farm? Why is it that you can't pay rent? Why is it that you feel shame for that, instead of like being clear about what the power analysis in our country? And at the end of that meeting, where we took a lot of risks, and there were tears, and people were sharing beautiful experiences that they'd had, and like experience of real pain that they'd had, and they were understanding like that it wasn't just them, they weren't alone in experiencing this pain. This was a system that was strategically designed to harm them and benefit other people. And at the end of this meeting, I invited everyone to raise their hand if they wanted to become a member of our organization, so that we lock arms together across our campaign so we can wield power to transform our world together. And yeah, I'm like, my heart's beating, I'm sweating, and I'm like, what is going to happen in this room? And I was kind of hoping like at least half the people would raise their hand. Almost every single person raised their hand. And when I went around and asked, like, Tony, why are you raising your hand? And she was like, I have felt so alone my whole life. I have been carrying this pain on my own, and I am so glad to not be alone anymore. Or I go over to Teresa, like, why did you raise your hand? And she's like, my water is polluted. I can't breathe outside my house when they're spreading manure, and I didn't think that there was anything I could ever do. Like, this opposition is way too big. Which is like, today I have hope. I have hope that there's a brighter future in store for us. And I just went around and asked more people and more people. And my heart grew by 3 sizes in that moment. And it was just like, we have this idea that this can change. We have a theory, right? We have a theory that we can create containers and where people can belong and people can be safe and they can change their mind and they can understand the world differently. But it's not until I had that meeting that I was like, oh man, this works. This works. Like this theory that and all of these practices and all this intentionality and all this care that we've been putting into building this vessel to contain our people's power, like it works. That was just a really, really beautiful moment that I know is being replicated across hundreds of organizations. All these lead organizers that I'm at this training with now, they're also creating those experiences in their organization, and that is a huge source of hope.
Janelle, that you're, first of all, you're such an incredible organizer, and the courage that it took to do that and the empathy coming together, you taking that risk, and Teresa and the other person take, that's what it's all about. And I feel like that is why we're here. That is why I do MVP. That is why we are all still on this call way after it's over, is because we all need that. We all need to create that together for our souls, you know, for like on a really deep level, on a human level, on a like why we're here level. And I just thank you everyone for staying on this call and hearing. I feel like we got like the greatest gift at the very end, you know, with that story. And I feel like that is what we're building. And we can all be part of building it. Like, so I just want to close with asking everyone to think about your community, your people, your network, where you live, the people whose lives that touch you and that you touch, and what would it look like to build that kind of community, that kind of connection that Janelle is talking about everywhere. That's what we need to build. That's how we change this country. And there's no shortcuts. We actually have to organize at scale with love, with courage, with taking risks, with getting out of our own comfort zones to do it together. And so thank you. I feel like I've never met you before, and I feel like now we're like, we've been in community, but now we've actually met each other, and so happy that everyone got to meet you and got to meet Mandela, and anyone who didn't already know Rima got to meet Rima. And this is very meaningful. And hopefully we'll win this freaking election. But whatever happens, we are going to hold hands together to make this world better. And we can't control the outcomes, but we have agency, like you said, to show up with courage and love and vision, and share our visions and share our passion and share our fears and build community, authentic community around that, which is what we all need on top of the political goals. So thank you so much. Thank you, Rima. Thank you, everyone who stayed on. And this is a little treasure that everyone will get, a recording and the deck. You can share it. And thank you so much to the MVP team, you know, especially to Julie and Zoe, who curated this call, and to the entire MVP team, all of our incredible volunteers and local hub organizers. You know, I know you see yourself when you hear Janelle and Mandela and Rima, and we are counting on you to organize your communities just the way they're organizing theirs. And together, we will keep building this amazing movement with lawn signs everywhere. We're hearing about lawn signs. Why are there MVP lawn signs popping up? Let's spread this movement. Let's build this movement. And that is what the magic is. That is how we're going to win and change things and have wonderful lives. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks, everyone. We're powerful together. Have a great night.
Yay! Go Wisconsin.